Well, the logo says it's something to talk about, and so that's what this is. And
What,
she she
you,
is
want,
still Vaughn,
you want to talk about my bun?
and she's fixing her hair.
My bun, my knot.
That
Good
the
morning.
our screen has become the mirror of your world.
Well, we're all looking at, yes, that's how we're all communicating right now, so we can see each other and see
Yeah,
ourselves. And
yeah. Everyone who's watching the show right now, make sure fix your hair. Make sure you're doing fine. And if you want, text in whether Vaughn looks nice or if there's a hair that's out of place. So we'll take comments. how,
morning.
are, how are you?
I'm just well and fine and dandy. Got past last week. Got through. Not. I don't want to say got through last weekend, but last weekend I didn't join you on the show because I was in just a tizzy getting ready for the graduation weekend, the big graduations, celebration. So got through that, and it was really really fun. And so yeah, so
Saw the graduation. Saw some of the family pictures that you posted. Very very nice. And, I kept thinking too as I was looking at your family and seeing Elizabeth in her gown. And what a great memory that you and the family will have, and she will personally have 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when she's got a family of her own and she goes back and discusses about the graduates of the year 2020, how their graduation, which looked like it was just completely blown out of the water, it was just kind of reinvented and repurposed. And a lot of the graduation ceremonies that I have seen covered on TV and in the papers and everything, it's really been heartwarming to see how the communities have come together to make sure that those graduates really felt that they had a nice graduation, regardless of the restrictions.
and I agree with you. And it actually, when you just look at the ceremony, one might think that it was pretty easy to switch gears and kind of reorganize logistics and just have a ceremony. But there was so much more to consider behind the scenes. I mean, I say they, our school board, and I'm speaking just specifically to Frisco, our school board, our administrative staff, of course, our superintendent and his office. They spent hours and hours and hours meeting and discussing, how they could do this, have a ceremony where the kids could actually participate in the act of graduating, not just say, here's your diploma by mail or drive through or whatever, but actually have these kiddos cross a stage and go through the act of graduating. And they had to do it in a way that met, obviously, public safety kind of guidelines and things like that. So you had to consider so much, like how many people are going to be able to attend. We, of course, had a limit on number of tickets that we could purchase as a family, even staff that was able to be there to help coordinate the event. I mean, I could go on and on. And so they came up with, after spending many, many hours and meetings discussing how to do this and keep everybody safe, they came up with they ended up planning a beautiful ceremony. We were outdoors. The kids, I tell you, Stuart, I'm sitting in the stands at the Toyota Stadium, and I'm looking on to the seniors that are all sitting at the end, kind of in the stadium seats at the end of the stadium, and they're all 6 to 8 feet apart, which was about, I think, 4 seats between each student, and then staggered. So like you didn't have a student sitting behind another student. They were staggered as you went up the rows, and they all had their caps and gowns and their masks on. It was quite a sight, and certainly something that we have a ton of pictures throughout this whole quarantine. But then that weekend we captured a lot of these moments because, to your point, and so anyway, before I move on, but it was a beautiful ceremony. They got to walk the stage. They could pull their masks down as they crossed the stage and received their diploma for pictures and what. It was a beautiful day here in Frisco, so it was really, really great. But again, moving forward in the future for these kids of 2020 to look back, however you graduated, whatever kind of ceremony you had, you're gonna it is a part of history. I mean, for all of us, of course, but the graduating seniors, college, high school, that's going to be just kind of a special memory for them.
Yeah. Did you we also there's been a lot of restrictions that have been lifted with regard to some of the restaurants allowing people either to dine indoors or outdoors on their patios. Did you find that some of those relaxed restrictions and everything allowed some of the families and all to maybe go out together and get a bite to eat or so after the ceremonies?
Absolutely. I know a lot of families that went out and either dined outside somewhere or went even indoors. We dined out that evening, and absolutely, a lot of people went and had dinner out. And yes, it certainly did help that the restrictions had been modified, and we have now our restaurants open at a certain capacity. And I think people, for the most part, felt pretty comfortable doing that. Those who didn't, chose to make a dinner at home. You and I had talking about kind of re-entering the world here as restrictions are lifted, and I think it's just a very personal kind of thing. I have a friend down in Austin, and she is choosing to remain very, quarantined, still, and the fact that salons and whatnot have opened, she's choosing not to go, and I think that's, it's a very personal thing, just personal choices, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, Lauren went out this week and she went to a salon, but she went because the salon was only scheduling two people at a time.
Yeah.
So they were at one on one side, one on the other side of the salon. So there was still some separation. Lauren wore her mask. The proprietors of the salon were all wearing masks. So there were a lot that were taking those precautions. And as we have said, it puts the decision in our laps. If we walk into a place where either the staff is not fully covered, the patrons are not covered, then it's our decision whether to stay or to turn around and say, I'll come back when either this whole thing is over or when they all go into a more covered up stage.
Right.
We happened to go to Costco yesterday, and Costco will not. We actually saw somebody turned away at the door because they did not have a mask. Costco providing hand sanitizer for everybody that walked in the door, but they weren't providing masks. So if you didn't have a mask, you didn't shop. And
right.
That raised our comfort level. We felt like, that, and we also went to a Best Buy, and we could not just walk into that Best Buy. We had to make an appointment a couple days in advance in order to go. And we stood outside until our time came up, and then they let us in. And it was, customer and store employee. You were not allowed to roam around the store without that employee. We had our masks on. They did. And at the time that we were in the store, I would guess that maybe there were 6 customers allowed in the store at a time. So I applaud the stores all that now are given that opportunity to reopen and start doing business again, but are saying we want to do it in a respectable way.
Right. Yeah, and I think for me, I agree with you. I prefer and feel more comfortable in those establishments that are just more visibly kind of still keeping their space very, I don't know, I don't want to safe, I guess, or whatever, like just signs of doing things that will help make people feel comfortable, like wearing their masks or even seeing them periodically spray down areas, making sure that the capacity is met. So I agree with you. I prefer to shop in a place that is showing signs of doing that because it just makes me feel more comfortable. But then you go into a store where you don't see anything really. Employees are not wearing masks and everybody's just kind of walking around doing their thing. There doesn't seem to be a capacity. So for me, I find it very confusing because it seems to be very inconsistent in terms of, why is it that we can go into one establishment and, it's a totally different kind of experience than it is when you go into a different place. And I don't understand the inconsistency of it all. I don't.
You're right. I'm finding that among the grocery stores. In fact, uh, well, I'll mention Kroger is one of the larger grocery store chains that we have in our area. There is even a difference between stores. So you wonder if maybe the policies and rules are not being followed from store to store, because there are some that I walk into where everybody seems to be covered up. There are others where it's becoming a little bit more relaxed. And so again, it all comes down to the decision making is on our laps. We have to be the ones that decide what we're going to do. I see a lot of people that are in some of the walking paths. Many of them are not wearing any kind of facial covering and all. I guess the thought is, well, we're outdoors, and so that you're less susceptible. There are others that I see, a couple of couples in our neighborhood that walk the paths every day at the same time. They all have their coverings on. If we approach from different directions, we both step off the path a couple of steps just to allow for that a little bit additional distancing. There are others, the kids are riding their bikes and skateboarding and all with no covering. So we're still a little bit in that, now the big thing is when are the swimming pools going to open?
Well, some are open.
Yeah, and how many people are they letting in, and what are the restrictions? I think they started with 25% capacity. Now they might be up to 50% capacity. But again, there's lots of restrictions as far as if there's restrooms, how they have to be handled, and so everybody's still reading all the fine print as to,
right.
to do and how to do it.
Yeah, and that's what I guess. I don't know. It confuses me in terms of I want to just make sure that I'm doing the right thing and that I'm being responsible. But
right.
But I'm confused at the same time because I don't know what that means. I don't know how to define right now being responsible in this scenario, because there are so many inconsistencies, and you also get different reports and the masks work. They don't protect. They're worse if you wear it. If we just had a rule book to follow, I would follow it completely. And I think majority of us would, but right now, I mean, I've even gone into grocery stores with my mask on, and I've run into friends of mine whose spouse is a doctor, and they don't have a mask on. And so then you're thinking, oh, well, wait a second. That person's in the medical industry and they're choosing not to wear a mask. What do they know that I don't know? I mean, so for me, I'm just doing the best I can to be responsible and to make other people feel comfortable as well. And so like the whole mask thing, for example, I just wear it. I don't know what good it's doing, but I wear it because I just feel like then I'm not going to get like the stink eye from somebody in the store or wherever. Yeah, but that's what going through this whole thing right now is just, some people are back to work. Some people aren't. Some people are lightening up on their social distancing. Some people are tightening up on their quarantining. I mean, we're all over the place right now. And I guess that's understandable because we don't have the answers. And even the people calling the shots and kind of structuring the guidelines probably don't have all the answers. So I guess the bottom line for me is, let's just respect how we're all responding to whatever phase you're in, if you're re-entering the world or if you're in a place where you're still kind of sheltering, just got to respect
Well, yeah, you're doing
this and responding to it, and everybody's going to kind of choose. Oh, hello.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're good. Sorry.
I know what you're saying. I think it's we're doing it out of safety for ourselves and out of respect for others. But to throw a little bit of a wrench in that, okay, I want to wear a mask. I want to keep the wipes for the carts, and I want the hand sanitizer. It isn't on the shelves yet. It's hard to find masks. It's hard to find the hand sanitizer. So it's become a little bit of a challenge there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's interesting. The hand sanitizer and like the Clorox wipes and things like that are still hard to find. But other than that, I think the shelves are pretty well stocked with everything right now, which is.
Have you noticed how much toilet paper there is out there now?
Tons of toilet paper.
Yeah. Toilet paper and paper towels. All you need. All you want.
Yeah, we're good. We're good on toilet paper and paper towels for a while.
Yeah.
But anyway,
we got brands of toilet paper that I never heard of, because when it was hard to find, you just grabbed any brand that was on the shelf.
Well, in a little bit, I'll get Phil to bring out the toilet paper that we just got in the mail. In the beginning, in the early stages of all of this, I was beginning to wonder about the whole toilet paper issue, and so I went on Amazon and I ordered some toilet paper for like $30, and I got it in the mail, and that was about I'm not kidding. That was about, well, I could look. I think it was like 2 months ago, and we canceled the order along the way actually because it was taking too long to get. And before we even got the toilet paper started to, they started to get back onto they started to restock the toilet paper, so there wasn't a need for it anymore. And the projected delivery date was like the end of July or something crazy. Anyway, so we canceled the order. Well, we got it yesterday or day before. And Stuart, I'll get Emily to bring out a roll. It's like little itty bitty rolls. I mean, of course, the picture made it look like a big pack of like Charmin or something.
Yeah.
It was little itty bitty rolls, and about 8 of them for $30. And I mean, anyway,
and it's single ply, and it has little wood fibers.
Right. I don't even know why I did that. I guess I panicked a little bit back then, or way back then. But listen, I have to tell you,
use the really soft stuff for your bottom, and then use that toilet paper that you just got in. Just use that as an alternate for blowing your nose.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to put it near my face. I don't even know. I don't even know where this stuff came from. It was like I was having a moment of kind of worry and desperation, and I just went on Amazon and found that they had this whatever in stock. I have no idea where this toilet paper came from. Anyway.
Hey, 2 days ago it was a tree.
Yeah. So anyway,
they just shaved it off of the tree.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't opened the package. I haven't felt its texture yet, so I don't know. But
be careful when you open the package. Make sure the sawdust doesn't.
But I have to tell you, we were talking about different places entering different phases, and we have good friends back in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia a little bit, and they're still kind of behind us a little bit in terms of where their restrictions and whatnot. They still have tighter restrictions and stricter guidelines. So, but anyway, she came down here to visit her daughter who lives in North Dallas, down there in Uptown. And so she got here. She'd only been here a couple days, and she had texted me and said, oh, how wonderful it is to be in a place where she could actually get out and get her nails done and go to a salon. And she got to go to a couple restaurants and go into the stores. And so it was just refreshing for her to be down here in a place where, we had already entered a new phase where we could actually get out and kind of experience the outside world a little bit. Well, she had only been here a couple days, when all of a sudden the riots started happening, and she has to be in her daughter's house. She and her husband, and her daughter and her husband have to be in their house by 7 every night because of the curfew. This was a few days ago. And she texted me, she said, I just can't believe that I got here. And she enjoyed 2 or 3 days. And then all of a sudden we went from COVID issues to the rioting down there where they were, especially. And she had to be, we couldn't even see them then while they were here. We were going to have a visit while they were here, but we couldn't because by the time the kids got off work at 5:30, they had a curfew of 7 and had to be home. So it was too tight of a time period, frame to get together. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And then she had to fly home. So unfortunately, the rest of her visit was under, under the circumstances of all the riots going on, literally right around where they live.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because Lauren even said just a couple of days ago, every channel that she turned on was covering what was going on the streets all across the country. And they just kept going back and forth between Washington, D.C. and Seattle and L.A. And Lauren said, I haven't heard a COVID-19 report in days. You didn't see any interviews with the medical community talking about where we were, if there were any increases in various areas, because all of a sudden, as much as we know and as media savvy as we all are, everything just kind of shifted focus into one area and one area only. And you couldn't even find an alternate news source to get you up to speed, except, for in some regards, the local channels, when they would go on for their half-hour report or so, then they would say a little bit about what was going on. But again, that coverage was dominated by, okay, here's your local news, and here we are down at City Hall, and with the demonstration that's going on here, and we just, it's like, what has happened to the
Right.
rest of the world? What's going on?
Well, because we were getting reports daily, numbers and this and just daily. It was every time you turn your TV on, it was the numbers and this and what, and then all of a sudden that just stopped, like you said, and it was all about the riots. So what happened to all of the information that they had been feeding us all this time? Did they just decide just take a break from that and move on to the? I don't know.
And now that the store lootings and the rioting aspect, because of the anger part of the response to the killing more than a week ago, now the officers have been charged. It seems like the protesters are getting a little bit more of what they were demonstrating for. So now the demonstrations have all become a little more civil. They've become a little bit more low key. They are more demonstrations of knowledge and interaction, more peaceful. Now you're starting to see that some of the statistics are starting to creep in, that in some of the cities, Louisville, I think, was one of the first, because they had been kind of hard hit by COVID. They're starting to see a little bit of a spike in new cases of COVID, and that they are tying to some of the street scenes that have been going on. And I don't doubt that we're going to start to see that in the next week or so, now that the funeral, the memorial services and all for George Floyd are behind us, and things are starting to calm down, not so much calm down, but becoming more manageable. That now we're going to start to go back to seeing what's going on in the medical side of our lives, which is either going to affect us positively or negatively. If there's a spike and there's more cases being reported of COVID-19, now more people are going to cover their mouths. They're going to stay out of the restaurants and stores, and it's going to be another vicious cycle.
We'll just continue to react to the developments. I mean, whatever the developments are, because it seems like each and every day you turn on your TV and there's something new. Whether it's that there's been a spike or that things are holding steady, whatever it is, people just react to the developments, to what they or to what their friends are doing. A lot of people are just doing kind of what their friends are doing. So again, for me, it's just whatever you're comfortable with doing, just because there are no answers right now, at least doesn't seem to be. But I don't know, the whole riot thing, and I'm pleased to say that Frisco, we did have a demonstration as well, or a march, whatever you want to call it, and it was done very very civilly and safely. And we had our mayor out marching with them, and some police officers, and I support the movement completely. I mean, who wouldn't? If you've got to be careful, you've got to research, you've got to know what you're talking about. Like, I mean, people were saying, "Oh, this is just wrong, these riots and whatnot." And I agree. I don't like the rioting. I don't think that's any way to accomplish. That's not a good way to accomplish.
Well, that was not the purpose of going into the streets. Really, it was just that was a faction that took advantage of the fact that people were angry.
Yeah.
But it was the looters weren't out there to carry signs and to say Black Lives Matter. They just saw it as an opportunity to cause some problems, to torch a police car or two, and unfortunately, that's what the media jumped on.
Yeah.
Not so much the protesters that were marching peacefully and trying to get their message across. It was, oh, there's a police car on fire down the street. Let's all rush over there with our cameras to cover that.
Well, of course. I mean, they didn't cover Frisco's march, and it was there were thousands of people out there. It was a big demonstration, and it was peacefully done, and it was done the right way, and it could have been used as an example
Exactly.
to people, and how an example of how you do this the right way. And when you do it the right way, it is the more effective way to get your message across. And I agree with you. The media, and I'm sorry, I said to my daughter, we were talking inside, I said, I believe majority of the people in our country, or our world, whatever, but our country, get along just fine and respect each other and are good and act accordingly. And I believe that the majority of the people in our country are like that. I'm sorry, but I believe that the media shows us a very small percent of the worst, because people want to, people want to watch the news through their fingers like a horror show. And they, I don't, when I see the little things on the news that they show us and all of that, I don't think that they should be filming it, because it just makes it worse. And it's like wildfire, and then people get ideas and then they go off and do it, and it ignites anger, and it just kind of is like wildfire. It just kind of spreads. I wish that they would stop filming the bad, because it just initiates more bad. And so I think it's a very small percent of really who we are as a general population.
Yeah, and the problem is that the good doesn't make headlines. It's the bad that makes the headlines. It's the same thing within the police community. I had a conversation with the Frisco police on my other show, and again, it's a perception. Everybody judged the entire police forces across America as being bad because of these couple of bad apples up in Minnesota that chose to do something that was not protocol. And all of a sudden, everybody was looking at the police force as, in the wrong way. And again, 99% of every police officer in this country is doing their job to the best of their ability and serving their communities. But it only takes one bad incident of a policeman overstepping his bounds and for the media to jump on it and make it look as a perception of we need to revamp the entire police department because they're all bad. You know, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that that's where the media has gone. Uh, my feeling is if there is a situation that is negative, the media should just not show up and just let the situation come and go and not get covered. And I think that some of those things would go away. But
fizzle out. Yeah.
nature, you know.
Yeah. I agree. I had a conversation, Stuart. Emily was driving to back down to Baylor University during the time, like around the first couple days of the rioting down here in Dallas, and I called the Dallas Police Department just to ask about highway conditions, and because she has to go 35, which is right around downtown. Right. And I don't know who I spoke with, but a very informative, I'm assuming, police officer. And he said he just gave us some advice. I said, so exactly what are we trying to avoid? He said, you're trying to avoid downtown and surrounding areas. And I said, all right. So we took a different path. So she took a different path because I said, are they going on highways? He said, yes, they are congregating on highways. I guess because that creates the biggest commotion. I don't know. But I said, okay, just give us your advice, what you think we should do. So she took a different route, kind of down and around downtown Dallas to get back on 35 and down. And then I said to him, I said, well, listen, she's going to have to come back. When do you think this is all going to be over? And of course, right when those words left my mouth, I knew that you couldn't answer the question. I said, well, probably not a fair question. You probably can't answer it. He said, no, I can answer it. And you know what he said? He said, it'll be over when the media stops filming it. And I said, I think I completely agree with you.
Sure. And as I say, also these people are out of work. A lot of people are out of work. They have no place else to go. They're sequestered in their homes. And also for them to get out, even to go to some kind of an organized event, for the most part, they have been peaceful events. But if it moves beyond the peaceful event, the media is there just to cover that glitch. If it's just marching from point A to point B with placards, they'll send a couple people down there, get a couple pictures, send it back to the newsroom and all. But they're there in force because they're waiting for that first, brick to go through the window so that they can all rush over there in order to get a scoop on that. And I think it's the wrong mindset. And here we are, actually part of the media, trying to say, put this all into perspective, folks, and don't be so hungry for dirty laundry that you turn on the news just to see who burned what since last night's news.
Yeah, and I know, and I agree, and I guess it frustrates me too that the media doesn't use their platform and their power to better educate rather than just stir it up. And what I mean by that is use your time on air to explain. Say for example, they're showing people screaming Black Lives Matter, okay, and then they show another clip of a different group of people, yelling and chanting, what do you mean Black Lives Matter? All lives matter. And then all they're doing is filming two different, arguments. But the thing of it is, if they would stop and explain to the viewers and the listeners, listen, this is a movement. When there's a group of people saying Black Lives Matter, they're not saying other lives don't. They're just preaching their movement. And so if they would explain, instead of just showing these two groups getting at it, to this group here, hey guys, I know you're saying all lives matter. They think that too. Okay, they're not saying just by saying Black Lives Matter that no other life doesn't. but the media doesn't use their platform and their power to educate. Instead, they use it just to show these, and this is just one example. I'm just giving you,
Right.
if they would just stop and educate and inform and provide the facts and keep it non-political. If they could just do those things, they would create a much more peaceful environment.
But you know what? Unfortunately,
I don't have all the answers.
the answer to what you just said is they can't. Because I use the term dirty laundry. That's what the news organizations want, because that's what gets them the awards at the end of the year for their coverage of the riot in Minneapolis or in Louisville or LA. This reporter gets an Emmy for their coverage of this event. And because of that, then the news organizations can get the sponsors for their shows, because the sponsors want to sponsor the stations that have the biggest numbers of people that follow their coverage of the dirty laundry.
Yeah.
I don't really see that getting any better, because not only do we have the news organizations out there, but we've got our own personal coverage of what's going on. That wherever there's a situation going on, you got cell phones that are streaming what's happening in real time. That's what happened with the unfortunate death of George Floyd. There was no media on the scene. It was local people and the police officers didn't even have their body cameras on, which was a wrong move right there. But there were citizens standing by who turned their phones on and started to stream what was happening, and that's what blew this whole thing to pieces. And you said something earlier that does strike a chord with me. That is that we're all talking about Black Lives Matter. Well, other lives matter too. White lives matter. Asian lives matter. Pakistani lives matter. Indian lives matter. Everybody's life matters, and this is all intertwined. And that's why you are seeing marching in the street. It's not just the blacks that are carrying the sign saying Black Lives Matter. Their brothers and sisters are standing with them arm in arm, letting them know that we care about you too. But again, trying to get more of those people on camera to say, I'm here, like our own mayor, who was marching along with the people from every spectrum, every race, religion, ethnic background, to say that we are marching in solidarity.
Right.
There was this much coverage of that.
Yep.
But when you put a camera and a microphone in front of somebody who is angry, it perpetuates itself. Not only are they angry, but the fact that they have now got a camera and a microphone in their face, they're going to become even more agitated and angry because they got their face time.
These demonstrations include an array of people, in my opinion, the way I see it. You have your people out there who are marching for genuine, they are genuinely concerned. They have a genuine passion and belief behind what they're the cause. You have that percentage of people. You have some people that go out there just because it's in vogue or trendy to march in a demonstration.
They got no place else to go.
Exactly. They're just doing it. Then you have a percentage of people who don't care one way or the other. They're just bitter, angry, individuals who want to get out there and cause a little ruckus. Then you have people who are, you just have an array of different people. When you see these marches, you can look out there and just think it's a diverse group of people coming together to march for the same cause or demonstrate, but with different mindsets. And sometimes just equations like that aren't all on the same page can become explosive. And that's what I think we've seen, because you can't say everybody is being destructive. There's a small percentage of people that do. And unfortunately, in my opinion, when a protest turns into a riot, they've completely lost all credibility.
Absolutely
The
right.
reason they were marching has gone out the window. I mean, nobody. And you've also now created, you've now generated a percentage of the population who now not only disagree with you but are now angry because they believe that you were marching for some other reason. You were just rioting. You didn't really have a message or a meaning behind it. And so they do them. Sometimes these marches backfire, and they do themselves a huge disservice when they don't have
Sure.
to act together and they're not all on the same page for the same reason. And I do think the brother of George Floyd said all the right things when he came out and spoke about that. This is not what this is about. And so it's unfortunate that these protests turned into riots because they lost a lot of footing. They lost a lot of traction when that happened.
You're right. It's because that disruptive aspect of it overshadows the purpose, which was the
Yeah.
healing aspect of it, and that's what the clergy people have all said. Let's not forget what these protests and these demonstrations are about. It's about keeping the memory of George Floyd, the good part of George Floyd, alive, and making us understand to move forward, to use this as part of the healing process, and that any of this disruptiveness that comes along is a discredit to his memory. It's a discredit of what he stood for and his beliefs. And I think anybody that's going to go to a church or a synagogue this weekend is going to hear from their religious leaders and everything this weekend in their sermons and talks. They're going to be talking about bringing us back together and healing America. And yes, we may need new legislation, and that will take time to happen. But what we need to do is just a new understanding with each other, and the fact that we are not going to allow the politics and all that happened 50 years ago when the civil rights movement was being developed, to have all of that just wiped off the board and start from scratch. We need to use what we've had, bring that back, build upon it, tweak it to make it better for everyone.
I agree. And I go back to, if because when I take the time to have a good constructive conversation with somebody about just this issue or topic or any other topic that, but my point is, when I take the time to learn, to dig into the information, to understand what I'm looking at, or what I'm hearing, or what I'm seeing, then you can move forward in a more constructive manner. And I think the big problem here right now with this particular issue, it's a big one. It's a big one. I think people misinterpret their slogan, Black Lives Matter. I think people misinterpret that. They are not saying, or at least the majority are not, they don't mean by that other lives don't. It's their movement. It's how they refer to their movement. And I think if people took the time, again, we're just using the riots as an example because it's timely.
Right.
But if people really took the time to understand, before you just go running out there marching, understand where all the parties are on this topic, so that you can then go and act accordingly and move forward accordingly. And I wish that the media would take a bigger part in educating fairly and accurately and honestly, because it would prevent a lot of this from happening. I do believe majority of people in our country Whatever, wherever, whoever you are, whatever your religious belief, whatever color, are good and get along just fine. But when they show these little percentages of things that happen, it just stirs the pot, makes you. And if you're that easily influenced, then the media is going to influence how you look at the world around you. So I don't know. Take the time to dig into these topics personally, so that you know where you are on the matter.
You're right, and it goes beyond that too. It also is, take the time that when you see a police officer, thank them for what they're doing, because they're putting themselves in harm's way every day to protect us and to keep us safe when things like this happen. Take the time to let your black brothers and sisters know that you have compassion for them and the struggles that are going through now, and they have gone through for decades. And I'm not marching because of you. I'm marching with you, and I believe the same thing.
And you brought up the police. Absolutely, Stuart. We need to recognize and respect their efforts. Yes, there are a few bad apples in every organization, company, industry. Okay,
Right.
They're going to be, but
in every neighborhood.
You can't take one rotten apple and then just assume that the entire batch is bad. And I think that recently the police officers have gotten just really beaten down and abused in terms of how we view them as a whole. I mean, I haven't seen them myself, but apparently there's vandalism, and there's signs out there speaking derogatorily against the police officers, and I think that's wrong. They are, for the most part, out there helping and protecting and trying to do the right thing. And and that's, I said to my kids, you cannot disrespect the entire group because of the actions of just one or two or a few. And I know that it just seems like over the past decade, it seems like, we just keep hearing a lot about this whole police brutality and whatnot. In some cases, you need to look into the entire context. And in others, it was bad behavior, poor judgment, whatever. But we can't walk around right now and just take this whole group, our men and women in blue. We can't do that. I mean, what would think about that? If you really think about that realistically, so we abolish that, we get rid of what then?
Stop and ask yourself, where would we be if we said, well, because there's some bad apples and there's some bad things that the police force does. We're just going to eliminate the police from our city. We're no longer going to pay for a police force. What position are you going to be in then?
Exactly. You need to think it through. I mean, I know it's already 10 till 12, and I'm not sure how much time we have left, but this is a topic that we could just continue. I would love, if we ever revisit this again, to have some guests on our show to get some different points of view.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Maybe we will in the weeks ahead. And I'd like to even offer an invitation to the mayor to come on and sit and speak with us, because it's a tough position he was put in too, because he's now trying to keep the peace. He's trying to appease the protesters. He's trying to appease his police departments, and it's a tough position to put our leaders in when a lot of people are pointing the fingers at the leaders and saying, you see, it's all your fault because you're not leading. Well, that's a bad line too, because yes, in this much of society, it's true, but in the broader scope, we're all trying to react to these things in the best way we know how.
And I'd love to give a shout out to our mayor, because I'd love to hear how he coordinated such a peaceful and constructive demonstration here in Frisco, Texas. And unfortunately, we didn't get it on the news, but it should be, because it should be used as an example to other cities and towns. I believe Houston's going to be having something coming up soon, to be used as an example that it can be done. You can get your message across without setting fire to buildings and trashing cop cars.
That's right. Well, I think that's a good way for us to depart today, is just to let our listeners know that wherever you are, be aware of what's going on in your communities. Support your police. They're there for your benefit, not to work against you. They're there to work with you. And be conscious and kind to your fellow man, because these are not the only bad situations we're going to be involved in. There will be more, but we need to be proactive, and get involved.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
So,
I hope you have a great weekend.
and you too, and a good week ahead. And for those that are listening and watching, we'll be here again next week, and hope you'll join us for some more of something to talk about. In the meantime, go out and make it a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye bye.